What is up, responsible day traders? It's Sunday. Today is Sunday, July 31st, 2022. I'm Lindsay Duff, and this is Responsible Day Trading. So it is Sunday. I did watch the market open, and it opened with the thunder. It just took off to the downside, popped up really quick, and boom, right back down. I really expected it to go down immediately when it opened, but I did not expect the pop-up that happened. Yeah, so I guess we can just go ahead and jump into it. We want to take a look at the news. Last week, we had a lot of news go on. The market moved up, pulled back a lot. But as you'll see in just a little bit, it pulled right back into those areas of the EMAs on the daily chart, kind of like we anticipated. Now, I didn't anticipate it to pull up as strongly as it did, but it sure did make its move up there. So let's take a look at the news for this week, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the market. All right, let's go ahead and check this out. So we're going to head over here to responsibledaytrading.com, go to news, go to market news, and here we're going to check out what we got. And so we have a little bit of news coming out as the market opens. It's usually all pretty early, right? So we have something on Monday, 30 minutes after market opens, Tuesday, 30 minutes after, Wednesday, 30 minutes, and then an hour after. So Wednesday might be a little eventful in the morning. Thursday and Friday are pre-market. So if you don't trade pre-market, they may not even affect you. If you trade once the market opens and you think about news, then you just want to pay attention to this. It doesn't say you can't trade through it. It's a very viable option. Some people like to stop a couple minutes before and start a couple minutes after just to give it time to work itself out. I tend to find that it continues in the direction that I'm looking for, or it just gives me another entry if it comes back and stops me out. So, that's just part of the game, right? So let's go ahead and see what's going on with the market. All right, let's pull up that daily chart first. So let's look at this chart right here first. I didn't realize it was like on a dime stopping at that area. I'm going to close this up a little bit so we can just get a little more intense right in this area. So let's take a step back just a minute. We had the divergence, right? And divergence is known to make the market move in the opposite direction. It pulls back up, and we think maybe this is going to push back down because we're inside of the Bollinger Band. But those BBs never turn purple. They stay blue into the upside. We get these nice reversal bars pushing it back up. We get outside of the Bollinger Bands here. This is a good sign right here, what we see here, where we get outside of the Bollinger Bands and just barely pull back in while the price pulls way back down and creates this retracement divergence, all while the bars are closing towards the top. That's a really good sign that we're going to, number one, probably push back up into the area of the EMAs. And also, it's a good sign that if you are in any kind of short trade or you've got some real big short expectations, you may want to set those aside for just a little bit, right? So it continues up and outside. Now, I was really watching this area as what's going to happen. Are we going to see it push back down since we're at the EMAs now? Couldn't even get the BB inside of the Bollinger Bands, even with the close at the bottom of the bar, very close to. So it was very expected when we saw this push back up to the upside. Now, we're getting up to an area of strength. We can look up here. This is a really big stopping point typically for the MACDs. That's what all these lines are representing, just areas that the MACDs stop and start to pull back, which means the price usually pulls back a little bit when that happens, right? So we're reaching up towards an area that tends to give a bounce, not only in the MACDs, but in the price as well. We've reached that top EMA. We are, the market just opened. It's not even an hour into it. So this bar could turn into this long bar pushing to the upside, finally bringing us up around this 42.20 area, something around there. So we're going to probably see this push up still a little bit more. It's got so much momentum. It's hard to say that it's going to go down right now. Now we may see something along the lines of this where it just hangs out, pulls back, pushes up, pulls back, rolls back down. It's going to take some work to get this BB to cross that bottom Bollinger Band and get it back below the 0 line, just like it did back here. Took a little bit of work to get it across and push back below. In my thought process, this has actually picked up a lot more steam and pushed up, but we're once again pulling away from the Bollinger Bands. So anticipating a pullback is not something that's out of the realm of reality, right? And we did see that pullback happen really, really big right there. So let's take it a step down, look at the next chart. I mean, do we expect it to break through this area? It looks like it's trying to. I would, at the very least, since this is such a big area of resistance, to anticipate it to at least hold up here for a little bit, if not pull back towards the area of the smaller EMA, while this EMA picks up a little bit of pressure to the upside, maybe meeting somewhere a little bit lower than in the middle and pushing back up a little bit more, maybe creating some divergence in these areas. I really do expect it to push down more. This isn't typical of a big reversal divergence that happens. It's really typical of what just kind of pushes it back into the area, kind of like what we saw here. But you know, I'm no fortune teller. It's going to do what it's going to do. So let's just see what we've got going on for the moment, right? So now we're on the 28,657, which is my next biggest chart that I look at. And I want to anticipate what I'm expecting to happen more in the immediate as I move down on my charts. Now, right now, we can see this box is representing that EMA. We pulled up to it, came back, pulled up a little bit further, and now we're coming back. And what's happened during that? As it pulled up to this area, divergence. And we actually had divergence here and some white pivots, which told us the possibility for a pretty good pullback. Pulls up, equals that top, it pulls up and gives us a double bar reversal. Little bars up here, couldn't even cross that top Bollinger Band. Pretty good sign we're gonna get another pullback. So we get a pullback, but what we have to remember is these pullbacks aren't anticipated to change the entire trend of the market. And why is that? Because we still have a lot of strength in the move to the upside with the EMAs wide and open, and we've got a lot of distance right here to the 0 line, which says that we still have momentum to the upside. So when it starts to pull up here, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little distracted by my son. He was hammering on something, so we had a little conversation, but we're good. When it back here and we still have strength to the upside and we're still above the 0 line with a weak movement to the downside, we're going to expect it to still push up. Now, one of the things I like about the way that it's still pushed up here is we finally crossed that top Bollinger Band. When we crossed that top Bollinger Band here, we crossed it with a lot of weakness and we started to get those white BBs again. As we're still creating divergence, and let me just show you what I mean by still creating divergence through these pivots as it moves down, we're still creating divergence through here. And now we've had a pullback that has been strong enough to cross the top Bollinger Band, but yet not strong enough to get back above these last high pivot areas. And that is more indicative of a stronger pullback than we see happening right in here. Now, this BB right here is just smoking to the downside right now. It's outside of the Bollinger Band. It's got a lot of strength, but let's keep in mind why we have this tick counter. This tick counter is here to let us know that we have quite a few ticks left out of this particular tick chart. So during that, and this is a live BB, we could see that BB move, right? So it may pull back in the time before this BB and this bar closes. This may pull back, close up towards the top. This BB may pull back a little bit more. I don't really anticipate that to happen. I'm just saying that is something that we need to pay attention to and be aware of. And that's the reason for the tick counter. So we know how much is left of this bar as it's counting down. And we know what to anticipate and expect as it's getting closer to the close of the bar. If we're getting in right at the beginning of the bar and expecting the same thing to still happen at the end on a chart such as the 28,657, we may find ourselves getting run over quite often. So yeah, this may still go down, but this bar may come all the way back up here, create another bar and push down, the whole while you're trying to make short moves throughout this bar. So it's best to wait to make sure, or check your other charts to make sure that you've got a viable move to continue with what is right now a strong BB and a strong bar. All right, so let's just talk about where it could go. Right now, we're expecting it to still be higher than this pivot right here. I don't know, it's got so much strength right now, it might be hard to see that. But our first area to possibly stop, obviously, is right here at the EMA and a support area. An area that held right in here and it held right in here. So this is a good area for it to at least hold up the party for a little bit if it comes back here and wants to push back up towards the upside. Hey, if it breaks through there, we're going to start looking to break through this spot and this spot to get down to the next area of support. And by that time, we'll see that large EMA move up to catch up with that area. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our 3 trading charts. Dun, dun, dun. I love that. Even looking at the pivots right in here, we still see the same thing happening that we had on the 28 657, where the MACDs are leading lower. Did we have a lower pivot here and it pulled back up? Yes, but in the long run, in the overall, we're still leading lower. We're getting those white crests at the top to tell us that it's slowing down. It's a good opportunity if you see it to move back in the opposite direction. Now, also what we see here is on our 10946, we've got 2 BBs now trying to really pick up the pace because we're only on the second bar of the 10946. We've only been open for a little over an hour, maybe right at an hour right now, actually. Yep, right at an hour. So this bar has a lot of work to do. We still got a lot of ground to cover with closes on this bar. But right now, with such a strong bar like that, typically we would expect it to continue in this direction. Now this is overnight action, so you have to think a little bit, you have to be a little bit more on the ball with what's happening on your smaller charts. You have to also be prepared to move slow. So if you're one of those that holds to the ends of the earth and you can't stand when it moves slow, you definitely don't want to be trading the overnight data, okay? So let's get back to this. We got a nice long bar, it's pushing down. Currently, we have the 10946 trying to say more down. Now, if we move over to our 1597, which is, by my opinion, our trading chart. The 1597 is the one that tells me what is the most probable move. Then I look to my 233 to lower the risk. And then I look to my 10946 to keep moving with it or look for bigger areas that may give me a bounce, okay? So what's happening right now on the 1597 is we do see strength in the BBs to the downside, but they are getting very, very light in color. And when they get very, very light in color, it's telling us that it's kind of overextended. We've had such a big move, but we don't want to use that signal alone. We also want to look for a slowdown before we decide that we're just going to, go all willy-nilly with that sucker, right? And this little bit of a slowdown was also indicated by the 233. Got the white BBs pulled back. MACDs didn't cross right here. Little bit of a pullback. Do we think that this little move back is going to cause a whole big shift back to the upside? I would say probably not. But with overnight material, a lot more things can happen than, to me, it feels like there's a lot bigger pushes. You rarely see this type of activity during the day. This is more along the lines of what you see during the day. This is more indicative of activity that has happened overnight, or if you have some big news spikes or FOMC or something to that nature. So currently the direction on our 1597 or 233 is down. It is working to shift to the downside on the 10946, but it's not there yet. We've gotten below the zero line with the MACD, but we're still inside of the EMAs with the price. And we'd really want to see them get below, pull back away to say, okay, yeah, we're looking for more downward movements to continue. Does this mean that we can't find a move to the downside in what's happening right now? No, we absolutely could find a move to the downside in what's happening right now. But it just means that we're going to come into some areas that may hold up the party. And if we're really expecting it to push really far, we want to be aware of where we're getting in. We want to make sure it's areas that we don't expect the market to go. So right now, I would not be really considering getting in on a short, even though it's given us a little bit of a reversal bar. First, we've got 90 miles to run back to the area that could create the bounce still to the downside on the 1597. So we've got a bunch of space to run back up here if that's going to happen. And so, yeah, no thanks. Also, even though our 233 doesn't run the world, okay, we still want to pay attention to the signals it's telling us. We still need to hear what it's saying. And right now, the MACDs are still pulling outside of the Bollinger Bands. We are way below the zero line, but we still look for those to pull back to areas. So maybe something around here as the EMA comes down, see it pull back, but patience is everything. This big move may make you feel like, man, I should have been in this. I should have been a part of this. But then you look and say, okay, I can be a part of this, but I've got to wait for the right thing to happen. Otherwise, I have a huge possibility of getting my booty handed to me. And that's just not very fun. So, currently, if I was looking for anything, it's kind of hard in this overnight. It's so much easier to do Monday mornings, but so what I mean, yes, I see this pulling back right now. If I expected it to pull back, it'd be somewhere back in here, but I'd need my risk right below here. And we're basically at the max for a 2.5 point risk. If I wanted to have my risk right here, right now, my maximum that I can get in was here. So it's pulling back a little bit. Do I want to chance it now? Heck no, I don't. We still got BBs up, but we still got BBs down here. So I would be waiting for a bit of a deeper pullback, even though this may be it. I don't think it's going to be, but I'd be waiting for a bit of a deeper pullback before I decided if I was going to take a short. And at that point, I'd still want to make sure that I don't have I don't have strength starting to shift to the upside as these BBs are white, as we still have 10,000 ticks left here. Just paying attention to those things, guys. Lots of space to run back. If you want to just jump on with momentum, I mean, you could really do it at any bar, but if you want to jump in with responsibility, and I don't even like to say jump in with responsibility, but if you want to get in with responsibility, wait for the pullback, wait for the slowdown, then look for your options. And that doesn't mean just because it pulls back to here that it's time to get in. That doesn't mean just because it slows down on here it's time to get in. You want to see the signals. You want to have confidence that it's going to push down. So you can see these BBs really trying to pull apart and push away, and starting to see it slow down here just a little bit. Maybe even starting to see this BB trying to pull back to the upside. Yeah, you can see if you're watching the numbers here, it's trying to pull back to the upside. Doesn't mean it will. But do I think it's going to keep pushing down? Yeah, typically I look for a bit of divergence before it pushes back up, especially in something like this. I'd want to see these BBs come up, come back down, and go back up. But, you know, the market's going to do what it wants to do. It looks like it's at a pretty extreme area to the downside. This is what I mean. I'd be looking for something more along the lines of this to see it push back really deeper to the upside. All right, guys, that's going to wrap all that up. I mean, you know, the biggest thing is pay attention, be careful. Don't just try and throw money at it and hope that it works. I always say don't do the click it and say a prayer method, because while I have hoped for that to work for me at previous times, it doesn't. It just doesn't. It's hard work. It's dedication. It's taking the time to learn something. It's spending weeks, days, months, hours on these kind of things, and then looking like, it just comes naturally to you. And it doesn't. It took a ton of work to get there. I have this saying that I keep around, and It's right here, and it says, my future self is going to do big things that my today self is preparing for. So those are the type of things that you have to remember whenever you're getting into these trades that are not good for your financial health, because then they also affect your mental health. And whether you like to believe it or not, it does, because then you start saying things to yourself about how you're not worthy of doing this and how you couldn't learn it. And believe me, I've said it all to myself. I've said it all to myself too. Like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I took that. Why would I move my risk? Why would I not get out when I saw that? Those things happen to us, guys. They happen to everybody. Where change happens is where you look at that and you say, why am I doing this? Why am I allowing myself to continue making these mistakes without getting the help that I need, without paying attention to the things I'm doing, looking at myself, looking at the way I'm feeling while I'm trading, while I'm doing whatever I'm doing in life? I mean, because it doesn't just apply to trading, guys. It applies to everything across the board. I mean, what I've told traders many times is whatever habits you have in your daily life, they are going to show up in your trading. If you're impatient, if you are not kind to yourself, if you are looking at if you take big risks that don't have a very big reward, those things show in your trading. Okay, so just remember, when you're looking at those things, say, how can I work on this? Because working on it makes change. Okay, you'll see that change come up, and then your future self is going to thank you. Okay, so it's going to do big things, and that your today self is preparing for. Your future self is going to say thank you for listening and doing those things and putting in the effort and the time and the energy to make sure that I know what I'm doing. I mean, that's just it, guys. All right. I feel like I have talked forever today, so I think there were some really good lessons in there, so I'm excited. I hope that y'all love it. If you've got any questions over it, please let me know. I love it. It gives me a lot of energy to just kind of talk through this and see that light come on for people. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. I hope that everybody has a wonderful week. Happy August, because we're here now. And as always, guys, you know that I look forward to catching you on the profitable side.